Welcome, everyone. This is the Abundant Investor Podcast, and we are Beth and Christine, your hosts. We are here to show you how you can live your rich life right now with the power of an abundance mindset and tools the wealthy have used for years that are accessible to the rest of us. Things like real estate investing and using the powerful benefits of life insurance. We're so glad you're here. Now let's dive in. Hi, everybody. It's Christine and Beth from The Abundant Investor. We are back today with an episode we can't wait to share with you. We are talking about short-term rental optimization. We are going to dive into all components of operating a short-term rental, finding one, managing one. What does it look like? For so many people, this is an exciting passive income stream, or I'll say semi-passive income stream that they're excited to get into. And in a day and age when we feel like that is a really great strategy for you to have several streams of income, we're especially passionate about this one.
It really is. There's so many things you can do with it. And it's an amazing market. It's a viable market, and it's a market that's here to stay. I'll give you a few examples of why we think it's a important, market to take note of. First of all, the projected growth in this market is 11.1% through 2030. That's a really nice steady growth, especially in a market where we're seeing reduced inventory in real estate and other challenges in real estate as a whole. So that's a very viable number. We also saw some massive growth in the short-term rental market. From October 2019 through October 2021, we saw a 40% increase in the cash flow for short-term rentals. So that was a huge burst. It's probably not going to, as I just stated, it's not going to continue at that rate, but it's going to continue to grow at a very, very steady rate. So it's an amazing market. It's a growing market, and it's a market that it's going to stay. People really love staying in homes versus hotels.
Exactly. And certain types of homes, right? And we've really got our finger on the pulse of that as experts in real estate. I'm in the process of setting up my third short-term rental right now in a new market. So I'm going to talk about that some more, share the experience and how I'm doing that. And, I think in general, this is a trend that it's here to stay, and hospitality is now in the hands of homeowners. We pretty much all have the opportunity, if we want to do some form of short or midterm rental, and we're going to get into that. And I think, just to set the stage here, let's talk, Beth, at first about who's the audience for these short-term rentals, because sometimes it's broader than we think, or what we might have used them for, or what we're using them for now. I think a lot of us in our situation, and I know our audience is somewhat like us, we have a lot of women, families, and so we think of it a lot for vacation, right? Mm-hmm. I know for my family, and probably yours too, Beth, it's challenging to stay in a hotel when there are more than two kids, and we both have more than two kids.
That's right.
And then it's almost a non-negotiable now for when we go on vacation to have some sort of kitchen to at least be able to store food somewhere. And so just, having that space to spread out is really nice. And don't get me wrong, there are times when I love a hotel for what it has to offer. And I'll be staying in a hotel a bunch in the coming month. The majority of the time I travel, though, I'm staying in some type of short or midterm rental now.
Yeah, it's true. It takes the pressure off of having to eat out every single meal. And your kids are younger than mine, but as my kids are older, we still love having a place to relax and, throw burgers on the grill if we want to one night without having to go out 7 nights a week for a week, that kind of thing. So It does make, so I think, we've broken it up into 3 categories of kind of target audience. And we're talking right now, obviously, about vacationers, right? That's the most obvious one. And that's what people think of when they think of short-term rentals. And even that category is so widespread. You can be by the mountains, you can be by the ocean, you can be going to look at colleges and trying to really get a feel for a college town. There's so many uses for that. And it's great. And I think a lot of people I think that's what's contributing to those stats that I shared at the beginning. People like having the comfort of home when they're on vacation. And the second category is are what we would call displaced people. So people that are maybe doing construction on their home, people that are putting an addition on their home. With real estate inventory so low across the country right now, more and more people are saying, well, I can't trade up because there's nothing on the market. Can I expand my home? And most people don't want to live through that. So having another home that you can go to for 3, 6, 9 months is a great option. Or if you've had a flood in your home, or you've had some type of catastrophe that you need to get out of your home for a little while. These are all this displaced sort of homeowner family is another category. And that's another category, again, as I said, with people now putting more additions on their home because there's no inventory. It's a growing market as well. And then the third is professional. Yeah.
There's a big market for this, and in one area of this market as well is a digital nomad, people that don't have to be in one place and they choose to move around and stay in Airbnbs. And we're hearing more and more cases of this. And then there's traditional professions where there have always been traveling professionals, and the one that comes to mind most is traveling nurses, traveling medical professionals. My husband about 6 months ago was physical therapy, and his physical therapist was staying in the area for 6 months as a traveling PT. And so was his girlfriend for the same thing. And so there's more and more people doing that. That is, we'll come back to that. It's a reason to consider near and around hospitals and medical facilities where there has been a lot of growth in this short-term rental market. And we're saying short-term, we're going to talk a little bit about mid-term rental too. We're kind of saying short-term to encapsulate it all right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a market for that. Around universities, we think there are often traveling professors or traveling guest lecturers that are coming in. And there's, of course, a number of other markets as well that host these types of professionals. And this is a really great solution for someone who doesn't want to stay in a hotel or like a Homewood Suites type situation, because everything tends to feel generic and they don't get to control the location. And
absolutely,
the home can be a lot more comfortable, like you said.
Yeah. And with the pandemic and the whole work from home, it's really opened up this marketplace, and it's a really cool thing where there's a lot of people that can work from anywhere. So yeah, there's a lot of other sort of micro markets, but we'd say that those are your top 3 target audiences.
Yeah, exactly. And so where would you set up a short-term rental? This is always a question that we see people asking a lot, and it's something we think about as we think about investing. And there's a lot of considerations, and it, in part depends on what you want. And one of the things I always say though is pick an area that you have some familiarity with to begin with. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of markets that happen to be hot for short-term rentals, and some people are, say, oh, I want to get in the game and let me go pick a market like in Austin or the Smoky Mountains because I hear that that's a good market. I would say pick a market to begin with where you know something, where you have some kind of connection, where there's a reason to get started. Mm-hmm. And then you really want to be thinking about your target audience. What are their needs? What are they looking for? And then what does the demand look like for housing in that current market? And what are the regulations? There's more and more regulations on short-term rentals. We could have a whole episode about that, talking about that. Maybe we will. I think the easiest thing to do to understand that, though, is to Google the place that you're considering a short-term rental and look at what the regulations are. Go talk to people in that market about it too, because a lot of times there are changes that are underway that aren't quite set yet, but there are government officials or, the town politics. It's something that they're talking about, and it's either a topic that they're thinking about, or it's not. And so if they're thinking about it, you want to know what are they thinking about.
Mhm.
In our town on the Cape, where we own some short-term rentals, there are some rumors right now, not just rumors, but conversations within the town government around, are they going to limit the number of short-term rentals people can have, or limit them at all? Are they going to charge people a fee for every short-term rental that they operate in town? You want to know what those are so that you know what your options are. There are a lot of markets where short-term rentals under 30 days are not allowed. So New York City recently passed a law that says you can only have an Airbnb or similar rental if it's 30 days or more. And
Same as
that
Boston.
can be great. That can be okay. That's actually what we're targeting midterm renters in our next rental property, because we like the idea of not turning the property over any less than 30 days. So, and again, that for the working professional, that can be a great thing to think about. And being near a hospital is something to think about a lot, or some kind of medical complex, because you tend to get a lot of people looking for 6 month, 9 month, 3 month, 10-month rentals in those markets.
Right. And it's not just the employees of the hospital, it's sometimes the patients. And how nice is it to know that you could provide a nice warm environment for somebody that's going through some type of a medical treatment. Yeah, so that is, yeah, exactly. And sometimes, Christine, people's markets are picked for them. So, for example, you may have inherited a house, or you may have had a ski house that you used for years, but now you don't ski anymore, or whatever it may be. So doing that same level of research is worthwhile before you just sell it, because you may, it may be more profitable to hold on to that and use it as a short-term rental.
Exactly. And to touch on how to understand what the market looks like in supply and demand in your market, there's also a lot of talk in circles around investment properties around there being a lot of saturation. So how do you know if an area is really saturated or not? This is a time when it's good to really look at the numbers and understand the data. And we love AirDNA for that. There are tools, AirDNA being one of them, where you can go online and understand what's the average price per night, what's the demand, what's the occupancy rate at certain times of year, and what types of properties, 1-bedroom, studio, 3-bedroom, are people looking for. So you can get a sense, if I were to put a short-term rental in this market, or put my family's vacation house online for the first time, is there demand for it?
Yeah, that's great.
So, yeah, we highly recommend that.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. So your first step is really thinking about the market, right? Evaluating the market against those target audiences that we spoke with. Okay, so now let's say you've narrowed down your market and you don't own a property. You haven't inherited a property. You don't have that second property yet. How do you evaluate which property to buy? And that comes really down to cash flow. And Christine, you've done this really well.
Well, thank you. And we have a tool, by the way, that if this sounds daunting, how would I look at the numbers? We're going to put it in the show notes. It will help you plug the numbers in and see what type of cash flow you could realize. So I just wanted to mention that before I dive in. When we've invested in properties, we have looked at the mortgage payment. So and there's so many tools online. You can Google that and find a mortgage payment calculator. If you've bought a house, I'm sure you've done it already. And understand, what does a mortgage payment look like with property taxes, insurance. And so then you have your baseline monthly fees, is how I like to think about it. And then you want to estimate what you think your utilities are. Those are typically like one of your other big costs that come up. And then, are there any other like association fees or anything unique to that property? And figure out what your monthly and annual costs are going to be. And then you want to take a tool like an AirDNA, and you want to think about, what kind of rent could I obtain from this property? Like what do I think I could get reasonably? And give yourself an aggressive number and a conservative number, and use the conservative number in the tool and say, how will this cash flow? And you've got to assume too that with a short-term rental, it's not going to be booked most likely 365 So there is going to be some level of occupancy. And so what I like to do is I like to break it down to a monthly basis and just say, on average, in a given month, if I rent it 15 days a month, so if I have 50% occupancy, would it cash flow? And also, you've got to take into consideration a market. In our, two of our properties are in beach towns where it gets cold in the winter and we don't have a lot of visitors. So assuming that the property will be vacant, we have to adjust for seasonality. So there it's easier to take the numbers from the high season, assume some revenue in the shoulder season, and look at an annual number against my annual costs. Can I cover the mortgage? And then what is the cash flow? And it really depends on your goals. So for some people, they just want to cover their expenses, and that's a huge win. For other people, they want to build a business around this, and they want to see how they can have a short-term rental business where they're generating six figures, multi-six figures maybe. So, okay, what does that look like? And then, to take it a step beyond, and this is probably, far out for some people, but not everybody listening. What if I want to then BRRRR my property, meaning I want to take equity out from it and then go buy another one and start to build a network of short-term rentals. Okay, so then you really want to think about, how can I create some equity in this property, and can I cash flow, and how long before I'll have generated enough cash flow to be able to put a down payment on my next property. So, and that's going to sound aggressive to some people, I think, and that's what a lot of real estate investors do.
Right. It's running a business. It's we talked a little bit about people's careers at the beginning, but if you want an exit strategy for your career, maybe a 9-to-5 job, and you want to use short-term rentals to do that, there's a way to do it. And there's a process, and it's proven, and there's tools that you can use to analyze properties and markets and know if that's, you're making sound decisions. So
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Especially if you're anywhere in your career and you're starting to feel like, gosh, I haven't saved enough, or I'm not really saving for retirement. What's my retirement strategy? Or I really want to get out of my career. I don't want to go out on my own and start another business. Well, this is a business and it feels like investing. So this is another option that you can build. And a lot of real estate investors get their start doing this as a side hustle and then turn it into a full-time business.
Yeah. Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked about evaluating a market. We've talked about how to evaluate an actual property. Let's fast forward and say you buy one and you're ready to move forward. What we recommend now is to think about your team. What is your team? What's your A team, and who is going to need to be on it? And you're going to need a real estate agent likely to help you evaluate and find that property. You're going to want somebody that hopefully knows about the short-term rental market in your local area. You're going to want a CPA, because one of the real big wins about investing in real estate is the tax advantages of it. You're probably going to need an attorney to help you purchase that property and maybe write up leases and what have you. Christine, you can talk a little bit about that. And then property manager, somebody that's near boots on the ground near the property that can be available.
Absolutely. This is a really important part of the short-term rental process, because your team, it becomes your community and the people that you are going to rely on to get the work done. So you want to get referrals. You want to work with people that you know, like, and trust. And if you can't do that, you want to get referrals from people that you know, like, and trust. And if you aren't able to do that, you want to make sure that you bring in at least several people, at least 3 people, I'd say, to give you quotes for things, so that you can choose among the 3 of them and see who you really vibe with and have. I do like to use intuition on this to an extent. Who's the type of person I want to work with, who feels good. I mean, that's been a big part of how we found our A teams in this process, for sure. And you don't have to have the perfect team. If someone doesn't work out, I just want to say, like, so many times we're going for perfectionism. Sometimes it doesn't work out exactly as planned. There's other people you can switch to, right? So we've definitely made some switches, and it's okay, right? And I think this is part of the reason you want to also look in a market where you've got some familiarity, because you've got a connection, right? You've got some level of connection, or you're spending some time there, and you can break into those people. And just remember that people want to help you. People are in, they work, we're all in service in our work. So folks are in service when they're helping you out. And I think that, that's a key component. So, we talked just to go back about like, how are you picking your place too? I just want to also say, you want to look for places where there's opportunity. So, and I'll talk a little bit about our recent short-term investment. You want to, like, one of the reasons why we chose the area that we did in upstate New York is because we found that there were, we not only near a university where we knew that there would be some ongoing demand, and there were a couple hospitals in the area as well. There's also opportunity, like there are projected to be a lot of new jobs coming to that community. So we know for a fact that there is a huge investment coming in through one particular company, and that's going to have all kinds of repercussions for the local economy. We've heard it from multiple people. When we were visiting this place, we would talk to waiters, we would talk to people in the coffee shop, we would talk to people at the university, and we found out about this through the university. So we talked to realtors about it. We just kept asking people. We found a realtor that was an investor themselves, and that definitely was attractive to us because we were investing, this person was investing, we saw them as maybe a potential partner down the line. And then I think it's really important just to stay open, to be really open to meeting people, talking to people, because all kinds of things happen that you couldn't necessarily find by Googling folks online. So that's really important. Right. That's how we've met most of our A team. So yeah, I think, and the CPA is not to be, finding a CPA who's got experience in real estate investing, big win, right? We love that. And I think finding an agent that, I found my agent in this place because I stayed at an Airbnb that he owned. So I knew that he understood short-term rental market. Part of my expertise and Beth's expertise is that we understand short-term, mid-term rentals. So, and if we're not in your local area, we can refer you to someone because we're part of a nationwide group who can help you. And I think it's important to find someone that understands short and mid-term rentals because they'll have so much more information. Our property manager / realtor, he's now, by the way, become our property manager, he has given us so many recommendations for everything from lawn care to where he bought his appliances, and so on and so forth. So
important. Yeah,
that's important, great. And it makes it so easy for us.
Yeah, that's really, really important. That's awesome. Absolutely. So, finding a team is I just want to summarize a little bit what you said, Christine, is, using your intuition, really feeling as if, talking to a lot of people and interviewing them and making sure that you really feel good about them, whether they're a contractor or a property manager or your real estate agent. It's an important process to go through. And I think that it's always good to trust your gut and do your due diligence. So that's awesome. So now you have your team, you have your property. Now the fun begins. You have to set up the space, or you get to, I guess, you get to set up the space. So you've done this, Christine. You've had a lot of guests. What are guests looking for?
Yeah, this is so important. And whether you're setting one up for the first time, or you've inherited a property that you're updating and getting ready to put on the market, or you're feeling like you might need to zhuzh up your space for your guests. I think, the mindset is a hospitality mindset. You are now in the hospitality business and you're meeting the needs of guests who are coming to like you said earlier, Beth, home away from home. Yes. So what do people want? They want to be comfortable. They want to feel safe. Like that's, Maslow's hierarchy, the key thing at the bottom of the pyramid is to be safe. They want to feel safe, secure. And then on top of that, are there other needs met? And for so many people, they want to feel comfortable and they want to be in an environment that's relaxing and peaceful and maybe for some people, they've got special things that they love. And I think it's a great idea to target a niche audience. If you really are confident about that and that audience is going to be there, I think that can be really fun. And that's a bit of a trend right now with short and midterm rentals. I think though, thinking about when you go to a nice hotel or you go to a hotel that you're comfortable with, in our course, by the way, we do have a course, A to Z Airbnb. We talk about branding. What's your brand? You could be the Courtyard or you could be the St. Regis of the Marriott. Marriott's got maybe 10 different brands that they own. And so what you have to figure out, what's my brand? What's my audience? And then you're accommodating to that particular need. And so this is so core and foundational. I have a background in branding and marketing, really understanding your customer and delivering on the brand that you've set out to create for them. So for me, like what I really like to do is I've thought about my properties are they're somewhere, maybe it's the standard Marriott hotel, right? Of the Marriott brand, or maybe it's, it really is depending on the property. I do want guests to feel really safe. There are things like keypads and making sure all the doors lock, and we purchase property in a safe neighborhood, right? Like that's all very important. I mean, that's the most important thing actually, is where your property actually resides. Someone showed me a deal the other day of a property in an area that I knew wasn't a super safe area. And I immediately just said, I'm not spending any more time looking at this. Right. And that's just not like my brand is. I want to be for people who are looking for a bit of an elevated stay. So you really have to understand that. And then from there, you can build out the space. So my space, I'm going to go to my first property right now. And as I think about, as we built that out, it sleeps 12 people. So and that's a big thing. How many people does your place sleep? And you want to make sure that if you're going to sleep 12 people, even if you have the bed space, you want to make sure you have the dining space for that. You want to make sure that you have a living room where everyone can sit. And it doesn't mean you need 12 seats, but you might want 8 seats and then 4 poofs that people can sit on. Or overflow areas, or to be able to pull in the chairs from the kitchen if everyone decides to sit around in that room. Comfortable beds are really important. Beautiful bedding, nice bedding, and it doesn't have to be expensive to be beautiful. So nice, clean bedding, multiple sets of sheets, which is something that your cleaners are going to, hopefully help you with. They'll take one set away while one set's on the bed. Things like that. And a clean place, something that's like clean. And if there are things that are really dingy and old, they're going to need to be replaced. So rather than maybe, try to clean up a couch that's been around for 20 years and just doesn't feel like it's ever fully clean, it's time to get rid of that and go to IKEA, go to Amazon, go to Wayfair, buy a new couch, or maybe you're going to Jocelyn, Maine and buying a couch because your space is a little bit more elevated. But find something that's got great reviews, replace it, and your guests will appreciate it, and you'll see it in the reviews, and you'll just feel good about it too. Like that's another thing about it. So I could go on and on about all the things that people are looking for. And I think use your common sense. What do you like when you go to a hotel or an Airbnb? And then we have all kinds of tip sheets and recommendations for everything from our favorite sheets to our favorite plate set that we'll share with you. We'll give you a link to that. It's a freebie that you can have. And then think about amenities. Think about people coming to your area. Can you differentiate your property with a hot tub? And again, like we cover this in a whole section in our A to Z Airbnb course. You just want to think about how can I make my place a little bit different, and maybe think about doing those things, and just know you are spending upfront costs furnishing this. It's a business. Any business has an upfront cost, and this will come back to you. Business owners know you make an investment in order to attract great customers who have a great experience, and that money will come back to you sometimes tenfold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this is all such great information, Christine. And I think the same thing, if you have a home that's been in your family for a while, or you've owned for a while, now you're going to switch it, taking things out is just as important as putting things in. So, if you can handle 12 people, you should have place settings for 12 people, but not 48. Or, you really have to think about that. I've rented places where they've just had so much stuff in the kitchen that you can't find anything. So I think it's really thinking about it both from how you furnish a clean slate and how you take away from something that maybe you've used as a more of a family vacation place that now you're going to start to Airbnb, and really, take the time to declutter, take things out, replace, and refresh.
Right. 100%. I think that's great advice. And then there's other things you want to think about in terms of how you market and how you promote the space and what's important there. And again, we covered this in our class. Knowing though what's the baseline, what's the table stakes for this. Mm-hmm. You do want to have a really solid description. You want to highlight amenities. You want to focus in your description on things that aren't covered in other places on platforms, like talking about Airbnb and we need a vacation, VRBO. And you want to think about, how can I make my place stand out? You absolutely want to have professional photos.
So important.
So important, right? There's no replacement, and it's very rare that places do well without professional photos.
And it's really easy to tell when it's been taken off of an iPhone.
That's
super
true.
easy to tell. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's just like listing. It's like, I think about it as listing a property, right? A lot of these things that we're talking about right now are very similar to when you go to sell your property. You want to put it in the best light, right? You want to have it staged, and you want to have as little clutter as possible, and good lighting, and clean couches, and bedding and all that kind of stuff, and professional photography. It's where everything is done online now, and it's definitely worth the investment of between $200 and $400.
Generally speaking, yes, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you want to think about, if you haven't done this before, understand the pros and cons of different ways to market this and book it. So Airbnb has been around for a while. Everybody knows that, it's a household name. VRBO has been around even longer, and they're an option too. And then there's a whole other emerging way to market your property that involve taking it and building out your own social media, your own website, knowing where to post it. We share all of this as well. So it's really important to know.
Yeah. So, we've talked about setting up the space. Now you're talking about marketing. Pricing is a big part of that. There are tools you can use for that. Everything has seasonality. Even, you may be by a university that has the same weather year round, but Parents' Weekend, you can't get a place at Parents' Weekend. So guess what? You get to charge a little bit more on Parents' Weekend.
Or a lot more.
Lots of examples of that. And there's services. We were talking before we got on the call. I was out in California this past winter, and we were there right before Coachella, and we were looking at the prices of places in Palm Springs around the time of Coachella, and things were like literally 4 or 5 times that one weekend. Well, if you didn't know what Coachella was, you're older. Palm Springs is an older, clientele, and you didn't know that was happening, and you had a place, you wouldn't know to charge. You could charge a lot more. So, taking advantage of either hiring a co-host or taking advantage, paying for some of these tools that will help you know what the big events are in the area, or just being, very aware of it is really important, because that's all part of the marketing. The pricing of the property is extremely important.
Absolutely. I love that. Such a good point. And then the other thing you mentioned, which we haven't really talked about, is co-hosting. So the guest experience, once your property's online, like managing that guest experience and messaging them and letting them know what they need to know, and being there if they have questions before they arrive, after they're there, while they're there. It can be, it's a process, and it's a certain type of work and a certain mindset to manage that well. Again, it's that hospitality mindset. And if you are thinking about an Airbnb or a short-term rental, and you're not sure if you want to take on that piece of it, or that's not appealing to you, you can hire what's called a co-host to manage it for you. And usually they will take on the responsibility of booking the property, and they will book it and then typically charge you a percentage of what the revenue is, what the revenue they've attained for your property is. And if you find a co-host that's really good at their job, they will handle everything for you. They will book it and they'll help to market it as well. And they will really make this even more passive for you once it's underway. So we find that a really attractive solution for a lot of people.
Mhm.
We have a partnership with a co-host that we've been developing and that we're working with now. So we're big fans. There's people that love to do this and will handle all the technology, like you were talking about how to price this. They will be hands-on with that tech, so you don't have to go and learn all these software systems. And that's another big advantage, is they know how to optimize already.
Yeah, so important. And then I think look, we've already touched on this, but so now you've set up the space, you have guests, you have, you're fully occupied, you have happy guests. And so the next step is, can you pull money out of this property and do this all over again and really take this from a one time thing to a full-fledged business? And we talk about that in our course. And we've already talked about it here, but we think that there's absolutely the opportunity to do that.
100%. Yep. And if, again, it can be a path out of your 9 to 5. It can be something that you do with your partner. It can be something for a retiree. There's so many different ways to structure that, I think, mentally, that will work for you to create the life that you want.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So for our listeners, I think it's important to talk about, we have 3 levels of offering that, depending on where you are in this process. If you are listening to this and you say, I've never thought about this, but I really would love to do it, and I don't know where to start, we have a course called A to Z Airbnb. It's an online course. There's 8 lessons to it. We take you through exactly like we did today in much greater detail. We provide you the analysis tools. We provide you checklists, what you need to do room by room, everything really you need to know to begin an Airbnb business. That's online. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's $2.99. It's self-paced, and it's a great starting place. And even if you already have a summer home and you're thinking, maybe I should turn that into an Airbnb and use that money to do something else, take the course. It will help you really understand what goes into it.
Love that. Yes. And then we have a more done for you service, which is, you have a place, you are looking for support in getting this on the market, in terms of thinking about, what do I need inside? How, is it optimized for my guests? How do I decorate it? Maybe you don't want to deal with a photographer. We hire a photographer. We give you recommendations on how to update and ready the space for guests. What do you need to get top market value when you rent this out? And then we will give you those recommendations. We will hire the photographer. We will handle it. We will write your description. Basically, it's done for you, so that we can either hand everything off to a co-host or back to you, and you can then take the property and run with it, or the co-host will take it and run with it. So we offer that as well. That's a newer offering for us right now. It's still, I think it's a really great rate, because it's very hands-on. It's $11.99. So 1199, and that's something that is available, and we do it, and we come either see your space in person, or we will do a virtual tour with you to get a sense of it and get a sense for your goals.
Yeah, and we'll provide you with links to where to buy the sheets that we recommend, from from sheets to plates to everything you're going to need. Again, this is a lot like getting a home prepared for sale in the market. It's a fresh set of eyes. The way you write your description is really important, just like it is when you're going to list a property. So it's a very, very similar skill set for real estate agents, and Christine, especially with all of your experience doing this, seeing what works, seeing what guests love. You get to tap into all of Christine's experience and put it to work for you without starting with a clean slate and trying to guess what people like and where you should buy those sheets and all that kind of great stuff.
Awesome. So we would love to support you. We also have a number of free things that we mentioned. So please take advantage if you're thinking about this. We'll put links to the cash flow analysis, put links to our some of our favorite short-term rental items, our checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll put links to these courses as well.
That's great. Excellent. We'll all be in the show notes. Thanks for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Abundant Investor Podcast and learned something new. We would love to hear from you. And if you did get something from this episode, please subscribe and rate this podcast so more people can find it and live their rich lives too. And remember, an abundant mindset means there's always plenty to go around, and through giving, we receive.